Hey y'all, welcome back. Today's video is actually very close to my heart and I'm so happy and thankful to be a part of it. I want to thank Sarah Powell with Pancakes and Pandemonium for hosting this collab. This is our autism awareness collaboration. I figured I'd sit down and talk with you guys and fold laundry. As you can tell, I am very sick. I have the virus that's going around. I've been sick for about 4 days now, but before it was my daughter, then my husband, then my son, and then now it's me. So I'm trying to get this video filmed so I can have it up in time because like I said, it is very close to my heart and our family. And so just bear with me. My channel is real. I'm not feeling great. I don't sound great, but I wanted to get this video up. So as many of you know, and you might not know, I have two kids. I have a daughter and I have a son. My daughter is 5 and my son is 8. My son is autistic. And we didn't find out he was autistic until, oh goodness, he was 5. We didn't find out. We knew something was different when he was about a year and a half. Even as a baby, he never wanted to be held. He liked to be by himself. But he was a happy baby. He'd only ever cry like if he was hungry or if, he needed something or if he, went in his diaper. But he likes to be by himself. He was very independent. But he was so advanced in... He walked at 8 months. He sat up at like 3.5 months. He rolled over at like 2. He's very advanced. But about a year and a half, we started realizing that he couldn't do certain things, such as like lick stuff off of a spoon. He couldn't like curl his tongue. So we had him tested to see if it was a tongue tie, and it wasn't a tongue tie. Then we started noticing he has no speech. So about a year and a half, normally kids, have mama, dada. He didn't. He would kind of just make like a squeal noise when he was excited or he was angry. It was the same noises in very, very, very loud pitching. We didn't have no concept of inside voice. And granted, was only a year and a half. That didn't bother me at all, but it was different. And, as a mom, you don't want anything to be wrong with your kids. And so I was like, okay, we took him to the doctor. He was meeting all his milestones. Oh, he's advanced, and oh my gosh, he's such a big boy. I mean, he was born at 8 pounds, so he wasn't no tiny child. Then it was, did you have a good pregnancy? And I didn't. I did not have a good pregnancy. I was sick the whole entire time. Every 3 days, I was getting IV fluids. I lost like 40 pounds, and I only started at like 120. So there was no way. I'm only 5'2". I'm very little, and now I'm only 105 pounds. But so we started seeing that he couldn't do certain things. Like he couldn't hold, he would like do a whole grasp. He wouldn't like do fingers. When he turned pages, he couldn't turn them just a little bit. He would like smack the whole book. He was very aggressive, but not mean. He didn't know how to do things soft or calm or gentle. He was just always from start to finish. So they were like, well, maybe he's just ADHD. But, there's no test for any of children this young. We just got to wait and see. So then the next thing we started to figure out was his eating. He used to eat anything and everything. If I put it in front of him, he would eat it. But then it got to a point about 2.5, where he started to become very, very, very picky. We could only do McDonald's fries. Then we could only do certain things. Then it was, certain textures, he would gag. Then we found out that he didn't like to brush his teeth. He would gag brushing his teeth. So that would be such an argument just to get him to brush his teeth because, you know, they're drinking all the juice at that age and milk and stuff, and you got to really get in there and brush your teeth. And for him, it was like I was cutting his fingers off. He hated it. To where now, fast forward, he's 8 years old. We had 8 fillings, 8 crowns. Now we just had 5 teeth pulled. Not because they were rotting or anything. And he has to get an expander here in the beginning of May because his mouth is so crowded that when I could get him to brush his teeth, it wasn't good enough. And with as crowded as his mouth was, I couldn't floss. He would not sit down to let me get his teeth to be able to be flossed. So at about 3 is when we started actually receiving help for my son. I'm so sorry. I had to go help my daughter do something. At 3 years old, we had found his pediatrician was like, listen, this is where the route I think you need to go, and this is where we went. We got him involved in preschool, which actually was probably one of the worst decisions we ever made. Because Phoenix had no speech, he would result to, I don't want to say violence, but if he couldn't get it across, he would become very upset. He would even get to a point where he would hold his breath and turn like completely blue. And I'm just like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And for so long I heard, well, he's a boy. He's a boy. He's a boy. He'll get over it. He'll get over it. And I'm like, he's 3. We still have, I think at 3 years old, we had 4 words that he could say. There was none. And so our pediatrician had found someone, which was ABA Services, and they would come to the house and they would help us figure out how to get Phoenix to brush his teeth or how to properly discipline someone who has no language, or because at this point it wasn't repetition. It wasn't, oh, if you keep doing it, he'll eventually catch on. It just, we didn't know how to do it to accommodate him because we didn't understand. He didn't understand. It wasn't like, okay, well, if you keep pulling them from the kitchen, they're going to eventually understand. With an autistic child, it doesn't work like that. We didn't know. And so she actually, the one day, I remember her sitting us down because we couldn't take Phoenix to the grocery stores. We couldn't go out to eat in public restaurants, whether it be Wendy's or McDonald's. He never could sit. And he never could, and I've never got embarrassed, but we didn't know why. Why can't he go sit in the grocery store and enjoy, knocking stuff off the shelves? It was always a screaming fit. And so she actually sat us down the one day, and she was like, I think we need to have him tested. And of course, I broke down in tears, and I was, no, because he's going to be labeled for the rest of his life. I don't know how to do this. What did I do wrong? I always felt like it was my fault. And I didn't know how to parent my child. So I felt even worse at that point. And so we had a great team because once she had done services with him, it opened the door for so many more. Then we eventually moved. I got pregnant when Phoenix was 3.5. I got pregnant with my daughter. And we had moved to Georgia. And when we moved to Georgia, because he was in the process of being tested and he had certain things, I found a school that gave him an IEP at 4 years old. and he started preschool at 4. And he did preschool until he was almost 6, right? Yeah, he did almost 3 years of preschool because his birthday's September, so he misses the cutoff by like just a couple days of, oh, your child has to be this age by this time, otherwise they go to the next year. So he did almost 3 years of preschool, and I'm going to do it without getting emotional. I'm going to try. Without this group of teachers at this school, they were like the first of the handful of people that finally believed me that, okay, something's a little different. Let's get you help. Because at that point it was, he's too young. We don't have tests to evaluate him and things like that. Or they would meet Phoenix and they didn't see anything. So when I met this teacher at this school, of course, she fell in love with my son, which it's so hard not to because he is just such a happy kid. And he is the sweetest kid and the most caring kid. And he'll walk up to you and he'll, hi, my name's Phoenix. And, oh, I love your shirt today. And you'll just brighten up and, oh, you're so beautiful. And, you know, it's so hard to not just fall in love with him. And, of course, they did. And we finally got him tested when he was 5. But the saddest part is even when he was 5 and got tested, he still was so delayed, he couldn't even do the testing. Because he didn't understand the questions that they were asking. So we had to, of course, almost wait another like 8 months before she felt comfortable to give him his diagnosis, which he was diagnosed with Autism 1. But the way she describes it is he is so high on the spectrum that it's almost like certain situations, certain scenarios, you can tell he's autistic. But then certain other things, he's a normal kid. But with her diagnosis and her figuring out that he is Autism Spectrum 1, he is ODD, which is Occupational Defiance Disorder, GDD, which is Globally Developmental Disorder, and ADHD. He is severely ADHD. But apparently I was brought to my attention, and by no means am I a doctor. This is just what I have been told or taught with all the testing and all the... My son has probably seen up to around 50 different people in just his short 8 years of life. That ADHD is actually a lot of triggers for autism. Like they can say you're autistic, but really you're ADHD. Or you're ADHD, they'll treat you as ADHD, but you're autistic. Because a lot of things kind of coincide and they go together. So for Phoenix, we finally got his diagnosis, and of course it wrecked me because I was like, no, he's just ADHD. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, I don't want him labeled. Like, I don't want him to ever be the weird kid or the kid with an IEP or the kid that stands out or the kid that's bullied because he's different. But without this diagnosis, I don't know where we would be. Because if I sit here today filming this video and I look back to where we were just 5 years ago, there's no way we would be here. If I don't think that we didn't get him tested or move to the school we had, we would not have the Phoenix we have today. Without that specific ABA therapist, the lady who tested him as psychologist or something like that, who diagnosed him, and his 2 teachers in the school that he worked with, they figured out my boy, and they helped teach me how to be the mom that I am today for him. And it's so hard to not get emotional because I was at such a loss. And it's so hard if you go through my channel, and I will probably link his video down below. He collects Halloween animatronics. That is his thing. It is an expensive hobby, but that is what makes Phoenix happy, is he loves scary things, spooky things, horror movies, Halloween, all things frightening and spooky and gory and bloody. He loves them. If you watch that video, you can see certain things that he does. He doesn't have where like he tiptoes walks or he flaps but he constantly repeats things. It used to be he would make kind of like He would kind of do like a hum noise, or he's a chewer. Phoenix's tics are he's a chewer and he's a constant repeater. So just like today, the day I'm filming this video, he is getting an academic award at school for having the highest grades of third quarter, which last quarter he got the same award because he is so smart. So he's delayed in reading and writing, but he is so far excelled in mathematics that they actually are considering testing him for gifted in math, because him and numbers and him and just trying to figure these things out, he can just look at it and just, boop, that's the answer. And I'm like using my fingers and he's like, Mom, it's okay. I'll do it. I don't need your help on this one. And I'm like, okay. But he found out that he was getting this award, and for 2 straight days it was, Mom, are you just so proud of me because I'm getting this award? Mom, are you just so proud of me because I'm getting this award? Oh, honey, I can't even tell you how proud I am of you. Oh, I know, I'm such a good boy. I'm so proud of myself. I'm getting this grade. Mom, don't forget, we're getting this. Like, when one thing hits his mind, that is all we talk about, and it could be days. And his memory, y'all. He'll tell me things. Mom, do you remember when you got out of the car the one day and you hit your head? But we weren't at this house. We weren't at the last house. We were at like 2 houses ago. I'm talking like 3 years ago when I just hit my head trying to get in the car, like you try to dive in and you whack your head on the door frame. I'm like, how do you remember that? I don't remember what I ate for breakfast this morning. His memory is phenomenal. But now that every day is still a fight, there are some days where, me and him argue, or, he is 8 years old. He's getting into his preteen ages. This is my husband's shirt. It says, I love someone with autism. Because no matter what, we still support autism. And April is Autism Awareness Month. And we love it and we support it because we have an autistic kid. But I forgot where I was at. So with already having his diagnosis, still finding him to thrive in a school setting is still some of the hardest things to do. Fighting with schools with IEPs or 504s plans, you're not ready for it. And there's no preparation for it. We actually just had an IEP meeting, and I looked up my laws, and I looked up one of his ABA therapists was, check this out, writes law, and do your research. And I found out that you can record IEP meetings. You're allowed to have advocates there with you. You can request an IEP meeting at any time of the school year. It doesn't have to be on their terms. If you feel things are not going, you can up and leave an IEP meeting. I always felt ganged up on, and that my concerns weren't their concerns. And of course that depends on the teachers and the school system and what IEP they have. But I will tell you, now that I've done my research, my son has new things added to his IEP that I never thought were even possible. And, he's a great kid. My son is such a rule follower. He's not a rule breaker. If you tell him the sky is blue and that is what the authority tells, or the sky is green, And that is what authority tells him. He will believe the sky is green because you told him. If you say sit down and don't talk, he sits down and he doesn't talk. But he's so to the book. So if you say, okay, sit down, don't talk, he won't talk at all. You almost have to be like, okay, I'll let you know when you can talk. So we had an issue with his school because they, he had a sticker on his shirt. Darn it. Let me know in the comments if you have any idea how to get sticker residue off of shirts. Sugar plums. Where she was talking, his teacher was talking to another table of kids. She even said, girls, table 5, that doesn't matter to Phoenix. If you're talking loud enough for Phoenix to hear, you're talking to him. I can say to his sister, Nix, and he's me, Phoenix? No, I'm talking to your sister. Oh, okay. He thinks you're talking to him. So it's almost like you, blah, 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 blah. Not you, Phoenix. Because if not, then, I mean, he's so, that's what it is. That's the rule. That's what's said. Analytical, I think is what the word is. And y'all don't pick on me if I'm trying here, okay? I am not the smartest bee out there. I'm doing the best I can. And with having a child that needs a lot of big words to help them thrive, it takes time to learn things. And every day, y'all, I'm learning. I am doing the best that I can. But I'm going to tell you, if you feel that something is wrong or that something is different, fight for that kid. You are your child's advocate. And you are the voice because they don't get to have one. But now that I did my research, I found my laws. I found ABA therapists who will come to his IEP meetings and spoil me and him rotten because they know the laws and they know what schools can and can't do. Things are different. We got more things added to his IEP, like I said, and since then, we've had no issues. Not one issue. If you guys have any questions, because I know I've just kind of talked the whole time, I will link as much stuff as I can in the description box below. Because Phoenix is in ABA, which is Occupational or Applied Behavioral Analysis. He doesn't need it for behavior. Like, he's not, if I tell Phoenix to go sit down, he does. You know, we don't even have to, you know, spanking hasn't been a thing. If parents spank, years, I can just talk to Phoenix. Even my daughter, I don't have to do anything like that. But he's in it for socials because Phoenix is very delayed in understanding socials. So we can be having a conversation, right? And we'll be, oh, okay. Or, you know, I'll be on the phone or something important. And Phoenix could care less. Like, he doesn't understand that that's, you know, give mommy a minute. Or he doesn't. He'll just keep, he will just keep talking. And I'm like, Phoenix, honey, you got to wait a minute. Mommy's on the phone. I can't function with 2 different conversations. He can. But he doesn't even honestly care if you're listening to him. He's still just going to talk regardless. So for him to understand, you know, the social cues of things. Oh, you know, because, you know, kids can be cruel, y'all. I don't think I even have to say it. Kids can be very cruel. And there's been certain scenarios and situations of where, you know, he's come home and, oh, they laughed at me. And I was like, okay, so we have to kind of figure out what happened. But he doesn't understand that if kids don't want to play with him, he doesn't understand why. Or to read like facial cues, like an eye roll or a, okay, yeah, like they're trying to get the conversation to stop. Phoenix will just keep going. If he's ready to talk, he would just keep going. And he knows how to use like happy, sad, those kind of things, but to decipher one emotion at a time, that's one of his hardest things. We can have 17 different emotions in one situation or scenario. But I mean, he's great. And I've actually had people ask me before if I could go back, would I try to do anything different with my pregnancy, whether or not, me taking nausea meds is what affected him, or could I have done more testing to figure out, no. There is not a day goes by that I regret any decision I've ever made with any of my kids. My son is different, and he's going to go places one day. And if you ever are down in the dumps, or if he ever sees me sad or something, he always just randomly comes up, because he's not a hugger. He's not a hugger. He's not like a kisser. He's not a high fiver. He's not none of that. So when I get a hug, it's special. Versus my daughter, who's always hugging. Mom, I need my hug today. She's my affectionate, emotional child. He is not. So when he comes up, he'll be like, Mom, you're beautiful today. I'm like, stop. Right? Or he'll come, Mom, tell me I'm handsome, because I know I'm handsome. Those, and they always seem to catch you off guard, and it just puts the biggest smile on your face. And he loves his alone time, so a lot of times he's in his room building his Legos or playing his PlayStation or his Switch. But when he comes out, it's like he's the happiest kid there is. And he never misses a beat. And when he knows you're sad, he'll do anything to make you not sad. And I love him for every single part of who he is. And I wouldn't change him for the world. Now, every day is not easy, but, he's my boy, and we'll be fighting till, it's time for him to fight his own battles. But I love him, and there's nothing about him that I would change one bit. Maybe a cheaper hobby, because his animatronics can be quite pricey, but I love him too. I love Halloween and all the spooky stuff anyways. So, I mean, it all just kind of worked out. But I want to thank y'all so much for hanging out with me and letting me ramble. I want to remind you that April is Autism Awareness Month, and don't forget to wear your blue in support. All those special babies, young teens, adults who have autism, ASD, just show them as much love as you can, because you never know what someone's going through, and don't judge. Don't judge. Because they are some of the most specialist people, and especially my kid, the specialist kids out there that make the world go round, and without them, I think it'd be awfully boring. I think it would be awfully boring. But I want to thank Sarah again for hosting this collaboration and allowing me to be a part of it. And I'm so happy I got to get this video out. And don't forget to check the description box for everything that I'm going to link. I'm going to do my best to get everything. Check out the playlist link below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.